The aliens sent the signal as a joke. A harmless poke, a dare. The Galactic Accord's diplomats warned against it, but the curious minds of the Vyrek scientists couldn't resist. They'd found a derelict human buoy floating at the edge of a long-abandoned solar system, Earth's last known coordinates. Ancient, damaged, but still broadcasting a dormant emergency protocol. The Vyrek activated it, just to see what would happen. What happened was silence. For 3 days, the buoy's repeating SOS echoed through interstellar space. The Accord dismissed it as a dead language calling to a dead race. After all, Earth was gone. Vaporized in the final war, or so the records said. Humanity hadn't been seen in over 300 years. Then the stars blinked. No, not blinked, moved. Something was coming. Something fast. Captain Erat Ko of the Vyrek science frigate Hopeseeker was the first to see the anomaly. A distortion at the edge of subspace, like gravity was curling in on itself. Then, the first ship emerged. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't sleek or elegant like the Vyrek vessels. It was functional. A black wedge of armor and death, bristling with kinetic cannons and railguns. Markings along the side, flaking paint and carbon scoring, read, USS Spearhead. Erat Ko swallowed hard. Identify that ship. The AI returned nothing. Not blank. Not unregistered. Unknowable. Then more arrived. Not one. Not dozens. Hundreds. Ships so old they looked like flying cathedrals of rust and fury. Others were clearly newer, silent, angular, cloaked in tech the Accord had never seen. They exited subspace without warning, jamming sensors, shattering local comms. An entire fleet. Humanity had answered the call. But it wasn't a rescue. The lead ship transmitted in clear galactic common. This channel is reserved for Deathworlder command. Interference with a distress beacon from a classified exile zone constitutes a breach of Article 0.2. This incursion is now under Deathworlder jurisdiction. Erat Ko didn't know what Deathworlder meant. But the Vyrek had no standing military. No weapons. Their science was their shield. And it had failed them. Panic spread through the Accord Council. Dozens of member species sent envoys, hailing the fleet. Most got no response. A few received only coordinates, and a warning, proceed at your own risk. Back on the Hopeseeker, Erat Ko faced the humans directly, her image flickering on a comm screen across the vastness of space. We meant no harm, she said carefully. It was curiosity. We thought you were gone. The human admiral stared at her for a long moment. His uniform was ancient, stitched with campaign bars from wars predating most of the Accord. His face was weathered, but his eyes gleamed with intensity, controlled violence. We were, he said. And now. He leaned forward. Now we remember. Then the signal cut. Across the sector, human ships began deploying platforms. Not weapons, but beacons. Monoliths of black alloy humming with latent power. Each one bore a single phrase, etched in 1,000 languages. We do not forget. Worlds that had forgotten Earth's wrath, its extinction, its exile, now remembered. They scrambled to make contact, to establish diplomacy. But the humans weren't interested in pleasantries. They were here to verify. To assess. To punish. Some believed it was vengeance for Earth's loss. Others whispered that Earth hadn't died, it had been sealed off. By the humans themselves. Now someone had opened the gate. And the Deathworlders had come through. Back on Vyrek Prime, riots broke out. The knowledge that humanity, mythic and monstrous, was real sent shockwaves through the population. Some saw it as divine reckoning. Others, an opportunity. But Captain Erat Ko couldn't stop thinking about the message. Not the warning. The fact. Now we remember. The humans hadn't come for war. Not yet. They'd come to see who had dared knock. And what they saw. It would decide everything. She stared out at the sky, where human ships now orbited Vyrek Prime like silent judges. She had triggered something far older than policy. And there would be no undoing it. The Deathworlders didn't speak much. They acted. 2 days after their arrival, they activated a device in high orbit, a black sphere the size of a moon, silent and inert until it lit up with a pulse of blood-red energy. Planetary weather systems around Virek Prime shifted. Solar interference peaked. Every networked machine flickered. Then came the message. Begin Phase 1, Compliance Assessment. Eratko stared at the feed. Her science team scrambled to decipher the algorithms now flowing into their planetary systems, ancient Terran code wrapped in encrypted routines. They weren't viruses. They didn't harm anything. But they looked through everything. Banking systems, medical records, government archives, cultural data. Within hours, the Deathworlder AI had learned Virek Prime better than the Virek knew themselves. "We've been scanned," Chief Engineer Krell muttered. "Top to bottom. They even decrypted my grandmother's personal journals." "This isn't an invasion," Eratko said. "It's an audit." Elsewhere across the Accord, other fleets began appearing. On Kyrian, humans walked openly through city streets, silent, polite, observing. On Atali, they took samples of local flora. No weapons drawn. No threats made. But always, they left one thing behind, a beacon. The beacons glowed softly. They hummed with a vibration that made sensitive species ill. Some tried to disable them. They failed. One council member tried to move theirs off-world. Their sun collapsed. Just like that. No warning. No explanation. The Deathworlder fleet withdrew from the system without a word. The message was clear. Do not interfere. Do not lie. Do not pretend you were not warned. Panic gripped the Accord Council. Emergency meetings ran without end. Alliances cracked. Trade routes froze. No one could agree whether to resist or appease. Many blamed the Virek. Eratko received hundreds of threats, even from fellow scientists. She didn't blame them. They were right. Her crew had poked the beast. And now they were all living in its shadow. But curiosity still burned in her mind. What were the Deathworlders truly after? Earth was gone, still a radioactive scar, according to deep scans. Why send this fleet now? Why the beacons, the tests, the silence? Then she remembered the SOS. And a theory formed. "They're not here to punish," she said aloud. "They're here to verify continuity." "What does that mean?" asked Krell. "They're checking if the galaxy's still worth protecting. Or if it's time to start over." That night, her theory was confirmed. A human envoy appeared outside Virek Prime's capital without warning. Not in a ship, but in a personal drop pod. No escorts. No armor. He walked into the planetary chamber wearing an old Earth military uniform, no insignia, face unreadable. "I am Commander Holt," he said. "I speak for the High Archive of Humanity." The chamber fell silent. "We answered an SOS," he continued. "By law, that entitles us to assess threat levels and determine galactic stability in accordance with exile protocols." "Exile?" Eratko asked. "You exiled yourselves?" He nodded once. "After what we did to our home, yes. Then why return now?" Commander Holt studied the room. Then he said a single sentence that silenced even the loudest politicians. "Because someone thought we were ready." Eratko felt cold. "You mean us?" "No," Holt said. "You're the test." He placed a data crystal on the table. "This contains a list of species that voted to quarantine humanity. Some of them no longer exist. Some do. You'll want to read it." "And what happens after that?" Holt turned to leave. "That depends on how honest you are when you explain why you activated the beacon." He vanished before she could ask more. When Eratko plugged the crystal in, her blood ran cold. The Virek weren't just innocent observers in Earth's fall. Their ancestors had signed the quarantine. They'd helped seal humanity away. And now they'd broken the lock. The humans hadn't come to destroy them. They'd come to see if they deserved another chance. Because the Deathworlders never forgot betrayal. They just waited. The first strike didn't come from the humans. It came from inside the Accord. A desperate attempt, clumsy, panicked, and fueled by fear. A coalition of 6 Outer Rim species launched a coordinated EMP attack against the Deathworlder beacon on Delvastation, hoping to disable the tech and delay whatever judgment was coming. It failed. The beacon didn't power down. It evolved. Within minutes, the once silent monolith pulsed to life. Not red. Not blue. White. Every AI on Delvas burned out simultaneously. Power grids surged and collapsed. Environmental controls failed. The orbital ring around the planet cracked in half, venting 500,000 residents into vacuum. Then, the beacon issued one command across all Accord systems. Fail condition detected. Retaliation directive online. Eratko watched the footage from her command chair, her claws trembling against the armrest. The feed shifted from Delvas to the fleet above Vyrek Prime. Ships that had hovered motionless for weeks now moved. Not with urgency. With intention. The USS Spearhead and its sister ships deployed drones, sleek, quiet things that spread across orbit like silver insects. Below, planetary defense systems blinked to full readiness. Missiles were loaded. Fighters scrambled. None of it would matter. Krell leaned close, whispering, "What do we do? If they attack?" "They won't," Eratko said, though she wasn't sure if she believed it. "They're not like us. They destroyed a sun. They warned us not to interfere. We did. This is the consequence." But Eratko wasn't ready to roll over and wait for judgment. She had a theory, and one last chance. She opened a direct channel to the Spearhead. This time, it didn't go unanswered. Commander Holt appeared, expression colder than before. "You helped build the lock that sealed Earth," he said without preamble. "Then you turned the key like it was a toy." "I didn't know," she replied. He nodded once. "Intent matters. But impact more." "Then let me explain the intent now." Silence. Then he said, "You have 5 minutes." She stood in the center of her bridge, transmission live across the entire Deathworlder network. "I am Captain Eratko of the Vyrek Science Armada. The signal activation was my doing. There was no malice. No plan. Only wonder. We found the buoy, heard its call, and curiosity overcame caution." She paused. "That may be unforgivable. But I need you to understand, we weren't trying to wake a god. We thought the gods were dead." Still no response. The fleet hung in the sky like a closed fist. She went on, voice steady. "We didn't know about the exile protocol. We didn't know the Accord once conspired to trap humanity behind a wall of silence and fear. That was before my time. But I carry the guilt now. I wear it like armor." Then she stepped aside, revealing the beacon on her ship's deck. It had begun to glow. "I will not disable it. I will not resist. Instead." She walked forward and touched it. "I will show you everything." The ship's data stream went wide open. Vyrek archives. Military records. Research logs. Personal files. Her personal logs. Her fears, her hopes, her motives. It was all laid bare. Total vulnerability. No one in the bridge spoke. No one breathed. Finally, Holt's voice returned. "Your people sealed us out because they were afraid of what we might become." He stepped into full frame. "They were right to be afraid." And then, for the first time, his face softened. "But maybe that's not all we are." The fleet halted. The drones returned to their bays. The beacon dimmed from white back to blue. A new message appeared. "Compliance status. Provisional integrity verified." Gasps echoed across Vyrek Prime. Accord systems updated in real time. The beacon on Delvas repaired itself, no longer a harbinger, but a monument. Deathworlder ships powered down their weapons. No attack came. Eratko collapsed into her chair, exhausted. Holt's voice echoed once more. "You passed the first test." She looked up, confused. "First. We remember. But now we watch." The transmission ended. Above her, the stars no longer held silence. They watched. And so did the Deathworlders. When the Deathworlder fleet departed Vyrek Prime, they left no destruction in their wake, only a silence that echoed louder than war. But the beacons remained. Across a dozen star systems, the monoliths stood as grim reminders of what had been awakened. They no longer pulsed with hostile energy. Instead, they radiated data, histories, warnings, and something even more unnerving. Human philosophy. Entire volumes of Earth's lost knowledge flooded the Accord's networks. Writings of poets and warlords, scientists and survivors. Some systems collapsed trying to process the vast influx. Others adapted. Still others tried to suppress the data. The beacons responded to suppression with correction. No further systems were destroyed, but power plants failed, networks crashed, and in one case, the planetary climate shifted until the suppression program was lifted. The message was clear. You will learn, whether you want to or not. Virek Prime was transformed overnight. Libraries overflowed with Terran material. Children debated ancient Earth ethical paradoxes in school. Artists adopted the chaotic beauty of human abstractism. Even the temples, once strictly devoted to Varikian spirit science, now featured a second altar. To a concept they didn't fully understand. Accountability. Captain Erat Ko, once a researcher assigned to probe the boundaries of forgotten systems, was now a symbol, celebrated by some, blamed by others, feared by many. She sat alone in the council chamber, facing a new envoy. Not human. Cleric of the Delvasi, one of the species that had attacked the beacon. His face was pale, tendrils drooping low in shame. "They spared us," he whispered. "We brought war to their warning system, and they spared us." "They were never here to destroy," Erat Ko said quietly. "Only to judge." Cleric leaned forward. "What do they want now?" She gestured to the holoscreen, which now played fragments of humanity's past on a loop. A man stepping onto a dusty moon. A child writing equations on a blackboard after her village burned. A soldier dragging a wounded enemy to safety in a storm of bullets. "They want us to remember," Erat Ko said. "Because they can't forget." The beacon on Virek Prime activated again that night. But this time, it wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. The message was direct and chilling in its simplicity. Deathworlder Protocol Alpha 1, requesting diplomatic observers. The Council lost its mind. Send ambassadors to the race that could destroy suns on a whim. But Erat Ko volunteered. Not out of bravery, out of necessity. Because she'd already touched the beacon. She'd already been judged. Her data had been consumed, scrutinized, accepted. And so, she was chosen. The human ship that arrived was smaller than the others. Sleek, matte black, silent. It didn't dock with ports. It landed, right in the heart of Virek Prime's capital square. The hatch hissed open. 2 humans emerged, Commander Holt and someone new. She was younger. Eyes bright. A thin scar ran down her cheek. "Envoy Reyes," she introduced herself. "Science Division." Erat Ko was stunned. "You still have scientists?" Reyes laughed. "Of course. You think we became monsters by only building weapons?" That broke the tension. Erat Ko smiled. "No. I think you became monsters by remembering too much." Reyes didn't deny it. Instead, she offered her hand. The gesture was strange, but Erat Ko had studied enough. She grasped it carefully. And that's how the real contact began. Not with blasters or blackmail, but with a handshake. Over the following months, select worlds received envoys. The Deathworlder fleet withdrew to the outer systems, leaving only a handful of observers and, always, the beacons. The Accord struggled to integrate the data, the culture, the truth. But something changed. Accord member worlds began questioning long-untouched laws. Some even uncovered secrets, ancient war crimes buried under layers of bureaucracy, now exposed by human data integration systems. Those systems didn't ask for permission. They simply dug deep. Truth rose like oil through water. And slowly, painfully, the Accord began to evolve. Erat Ko stood once more at the foot of the Virek Prime beacon. It no longer frightened her. It inspired her. Holt's final message echoed in her mind. "We were exiled because we feared ourselves. Now we return to see if anyone else is brave enough to face who they really are." She turned to the small crowd gathered, students, politicians, even former critics. They'd come to listen to her speak, not as a scapegoat, but as the first diplomat of a rebalanced galaxy. "I triggered the SOS," she began. "And what came next scared us. Because we saw not monsters, but mirrors." She let that settle. Humanity didn't come back to reclaim dominance. They came to hold up a light. And it's up to us what we do with the shadows it casts. Applause followed, tentative, but real. In the skies above, the last Deathworlder ship slipped into subspace. They were watching still. But not as conquerors. As witnesses. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was finally ready to be seen.